Robbie George with my final guest today. I'm talking to Irwin Diefenthaler, if I got that right. Irwin is probably one of the most original members of MCC Sydney. In fact, he stems from the USA. I'm going to interview Irwin predominantly about the history of MCC as far as he's concerned. He's been involved with MCC probably as longer than anybody. Hi, Irwin, how are you?
Very good. How are you today?
I'm really well, thank you.
Good.
Irwin, I guess you're a bit of a stalwart when it comes to MCC, and I think you've had as much airline experience as I have.
Yeah.
So I guess we should call you probably Clipper Irwin from your Pan Am days.
Yes, I've been around.
You've been, well, yes, we won't talk about that. Irwin, tell me a little bit about MCC and your first experience with MCC. Now, you came from the USA, so tell me how it first started as far as you're concerned.
Well, my partner and I were actually living in Chicago for a year in 73, 74. And that was just shortly after gay liberation. And in one of the gay newspapers, I read a little ad that Metropolitan Community Church, an outreach to gays and lesbians, Sunday night, 7:30 at the Methodist Church on Clark Street. And I thought, I've got to go there because...
Now, this is in Chicago?
This is in Chicago, and see what this is all about because of my history of being a churchgoer and the whole bit and being asked to leave the church. So I went along, and I was scared at first. You know, I walked across the street and checked it out. No, they didn't look like they were all strangers or the whole bit. But I walked in, and it was actually very friendly and very, very warm. It was very American, of course, and according to the times, and very, very formal, the actual church service. But it suited its purpose, and I felt very comfortable there, so I continued to go for as long as we stayed in Chicago.
Okay.
And that was my first introduction to MCC, but then my partner and I, we moved back to Australia, and the worst thing about that, in my mind, was, it took me all this while to find MCC. Now I'm going back to the down under. They'll never get an MCC there. And it was only about 6 months after we had returned to Australia that I was just reading in the Sydney Morning Herald another little ad that said, Christ Community Church, an outreach to gays and lesbians, meeting at the Quaker Hall Sunday night, 7:30. And I thought, well, this is a bit strange. I might go along and check this one out. So I did, and it was very unique because on that evening, it was a small little worship group of about 12 people. It was announced that the Reverend Lee Carlton from the Universal Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches in Los Angeles would be arriving during the week to set up and start MCC in Australia. And I thought all of my Christmases had come at once.
That sounds wonderful. Now, you came back to Australia from the USA, I understand, in 1974?
That's right.
And yourself and your partner, George?
That's right.
I understand? Okay. Now, these are pretty much early days for MCC in Sydney,
Yes.
of course. And we had no morning service, I understand, at that
No.
time. And I guess you were saying something about the evening service being the only gay and lesbian event of Sunday.
Yes. Well, you have to realize this is back in the early 70s, and Sydney, Australia was closed down on Sunday night. There were no gay bars on Sunday night. There were no gay venues. The social clubs were on Saturday night. MCC was the only venue. So if you wanted a gay venue on Sunday night, you could go to church. And it was automatically almost a hit straight away. We went from 12 to 50, 60 people within a matter of weeks. And we outgrew the Quaker Hall and moved to the Paddington, to the Uniting Church, and the whole bit.
You've actually been involved, as you say, with MCC for quite a long time, and certainly 25 years in Australia at least, anyway.
That's right.
Now, you've lost your partner, unfortunately.
Yes.
Very, very sad occasion in 1992, you were saying.
That's right.
But you've seen a lot of firsts in MCC, certainly
Yes.
in Sydney, so you've been very much involved. And I understand you've been involved in just about every aspect of the church except the choir.
Yes, I don't sing.
Which you don't particularly want to either.
No, and you don't want to hear me sing.
Okay. One of the questions I'd like to ask you in which case then is, what do you see the role of the MCC church within the gay and lesbian community? How do you see its contribution taking shape?
Over the years, it's evolved to a lot of things, because when it first came along, I thought, great, this can be the gay and lesbian church. And I think even the fellowship, the whole Universal Fellowship, felt that way. this will be our church. But Australia is probably a bit different than America, quite a bit different. Australia is not a church-going population. And what we seemed to find in Australia was a lot of people would come along 3, 6 months and then float away. But they didn't actually float away because they denied MCC. We found out that one of our major calling was just reassuring them that God does love them and that Christ was in their community and they could go back to their community, some went back to their church. They started an Anglican gay group, a Catholic gay group, other gay groups. But us being the first, we opened the door for a lot of people. So we had to learn that, hey, organized church is not for everyone. And it's not only the organized church, but a big outreach to a gay and lesbian community just to get one message across. And we've had to learn over the years that is one of our major outreaches.
Irwin, just tell me briefly before we close today, what does MCC on a personal note mean to you? I mean, you've been involved for many, many years now. Is it very much your life?
It is my total life now. Of course, being Native American, by birth I've lived in Australia 30 years. All of my family are in America. My partner has been dead 7 years, so it's almost my family now, but it's also an intricate part of me. Without Jesus and Christ in my life, I actually wouldn't have a life. And I prefer to worship God in this manner through MCC. And I feel it's just where I belong.
Irwin, you're probably one of the most senior members in the church. It's been a pleasure interviewing you today.
Thank you.
I'm very, very privileged to be able to do that. You've been listening to Irwin Diefenthaler, if I've said that correctly, former airline guru and now very much involved in MCC Sydney and probably one of the most senior people involved in MCC Sydney. I'm Robbie George and I hope you enjoy watching this video and our interview today.